Blessed, blessed, blessed. What does it mean to be blessed? Is that a word you use very often? Blessed? If somebody sneezes, right? God bless you, usually, right? Sometimes we sign off on cards that way too, blessings. Not that we can give those blessings, right? Although we can. But when we say it that way, I suppose we're kind of asking for God's blessings to be upon them. It's kind of a prayer. At least that's when I write it. That's what I mean. But how can we be a blessing to others? And how can we view things that are not so blessed that happen in our lives? How can we view those as blessings, as difficult as that can be? Well, I thought I would start by reading something from Dr. Barbara Holmes, who is working with Richard Rohr, again, from that Center for Action and Contemplation. We were kind of reading his works in Advent, and all of a sudden, kind of the theme for 2023 was Jesus as prophet and our prophetic voice, and it just really spoke to me as I was working on my sermon. So I hope that's okay that I'm just going to share a bit of this. I'm guessing that maybe a few of you have signed up for the emails. If not, I would highly encourage them. It's the Center for Action and Contemplation. Again, you can get a daily email. I think you can ask for it once a week, that they just do like the highlights from those. But I have found them to be very, very meaningful. But I just wanted to share this with you. Again, thinking about all the different roles that we place Jesus in, and one of them, one of the least recognized, I think, truly, is the role of Jesus as prophet. And looking at our own call to ministry and our gifts. And again, is there a prophetic voice that we can be sharing? And again, I think we hear that and we think, oh, well, it's not me, or I don't want everyone to think that I'm better than everybody else. Oh, everyone listen to me. You think of a prophet standing on a soapbox, right? Telling people what to do. And, we certainly have lots of examples of prophetic voice in our scriptures. But sometimes that prophetic voice is just the voice of going, this is not right. This, what's happening over here, is not right. And we need to acknowledge that it's not right. And we need to work towards making sure that there is equality and justice for all people. Whatever that situation is, or that call to action is about, it's still a prophetic voice. So I just want to read this. It's not very long. It's from Dr. Barbara Holmes. And she says, what did Jesus the prophet do? As a prophet, Jesus performed miracles, exercised authority over nature and spiritual entities, walked on water, turned water into wine. As a prophet, Jesus healed. As a prophet, Jesus fed the hungry. As a prophet, Jesus taught prophetically. He sat at the feet of elders, but he also taught with his heart, hearing the whispers of the Holy Spirit and allowing it to speak to him. Teaching, if not anointed, is just ego strutting and repeating information. Teaching prophetically goes beyond facts and material, and it reaches into the unutterable and allows silence and spirit to do the teaching. Jesus also exercised spiritual gifts. Prophecy is a spiritual gift. Paul wrote about the gift of prophecy in his letter to the Romans. And he said, we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, prophecy in proportion to faith. Romans 12:6. And again, we also remember last week talking about, with our whole annual meeting, we talked about 1 Corinthians 12 and all the different gifts listed there as well and considered. And although prophecy is mentioned more than any other gift in the Bible, it's also stated that prophecy will pass away, and the only thing left will be love. Prophecy comes to life as love, right? If you care deeply about something and you see it and you need to share that, that's coming out of a love for those peoples, those individuals, the creation, whoever it is that you're caring for. That comes out as love. Prophecy comes to life as love. Jesus the prophet is love manifested. We also can be love manifested in the world. As Christians, Jesus is the prophet who guides us. And this is what I want to share with you. You don't have to eat locusts, John the Baptist, or lay on your side in rags, Ezekiel. Perhaps all it requires is the willingness to offer your life a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, Romans 12:1. All we have to do is recognize that the time has come to make full use of our gifts, that we are the embodiment of a new order. Isn't that kind of exciting? The embodiment of a new order. We're following the example set by the prophet Jesus. During his time, Jesus was the embodiment of a new order. He was a fulfillment of the prophecy of those who had gone before. Because Jesus has come and truly overturned and overcome the systems of the world, he beckons us to do likewise. You see, the system says, it can't be done. You cannot walk on water. Gravity wins. The system says, religion is of no use except to placate the people. And you'd better put your money in growth mutual funds. Jesus says, there's another way, the prophetic way. And even now Jesus beckons, saying, step out of the water, come. Now you may be thinking, how am I going to walk on water? I don't even know how to swim. Well, we offer our gifts to God and our neighbors. That's how we walk on water. Your gift may be prayer or art or business or teaching, but the prophetic call will hone your gifts so that your very lives are a prophetic witness to the world. This past week, I had the privilege of sharing an 8-hour-a-day Zoom meeting for 5 days. I don't know, I thought I'd throw that out to see how much of a privilege you all would think that is. But it actually was. There were lots of breaks and times for writing and journaling and small groups. So it was a little tricky. I had to keep putting a t-shirt over the screen so that they could see me, but yet I didn't have to look at everybody else because it was doing crazy things with my eyes and my head still. But it was just very, very interesting. It was a group of probably 20 people. It was through San Francisco Theological Seminary. And very interesting. And again, I'm not really sharing a lot yet because I just really need to process it. But just very interesting to see what other churches are doing, what other people are doing. There was a lot of speaking of kind of a prophetic voice as well. And one of those things that kind of kept coming up was art. They kept talking about the different, that there were several churches that had a large building, and the building was only used on Sunday mornings, right? Pretty much. And so they rented out. There were several people that were there, and we also saw some videos from on YouTube, which I'd like to share with you in an email or on Facebook, so you can look at those on YouTube yourself. But it was all these different churches that had rented out space. And again, this is nothing new, but rented out space to different nonprofits to use their space. And so there was an art collaborative where people would work on art as healing, that for trauma survivors would come in and create art, and then they would talk about all the feelings and discuss that. And then there were all these other different social justice groups, and then they all worked together. They're in the church building, not necessarily coming to church on Sundays, but giving their ministry, and the church was able to provide that space for those. So again, I was thinking about that. They also showed a couple different churches. There was one in downtown Memphis that closed. But again, their building took a whole life of its own, and the people in the church started working with this new ministry. So in some ways, the church closed, like the actual name of the church, I guess. But yet the spirit of that church lived on in the people as they started taking on new ministries of service and getting out into their community. So again, that was just one example, but I just kind of kept hitting me that, for most people, in fact, at one point they put, there was someone that typed in our chat, because we would watch videos and we would chat all the whole time, like back and forth, share thoughts. And one person said something about, that a dying church, or the church dying. And then somebody else immediately said, well, but no, it wasn't dead, it's resurrected in just a different form, So again, what the thought that I kept coming back with that, and again, I'm in no way, I just am thinking right now, oh my gosh, Gina, you're panicking people. And in no way am I saying that that's what I think we are doing or should do. But what goes with these blessings that I'm going to share was that I thought, again, it's something that's seemingly the end of something, right? And we all have those in our lives, seemingly the end of something. How can this be a blessing? Because this is a horrible thing that's happening, or not what I wanted to happen in my life, right? We all have those things. But yet, we are able to work with the Spirit, right? Working through us to find new ways to bring to life the ashes of other things. And so that's the first thing that I thought of as I was kind of going over again my sermon of what to talk about with these blessings. That was just such a powerful image to me. The other part that they did, and again, I don't know why I keep talking about this particular topic, but it was such an important visual. Again, it was a church that was being knocked down, and they were building low-income housing because there was no housing there, and they were going to affordable. I can't think where it was, in inner city of a city. I can't think. And then they also were having then different services that would be right there. So if you need the VA, if you need, a help with food, all of that right there. And so before they knocked their building down, and again, what a horrible thing to have to do. But before they did, they took communion, and they gave a blessing for their building. And then the imagery then in like kind of what they showed on this video was then, that was the body of Christ, and it was broken. They took the parts of the top of the church off in order to serve and distribute Christ's body to the world. I don't know. I just thought the visual was just phenomenal. Of again, finding something that is seemingly pretty, horrible to go through, but yet at the same time was providing new life. And this had been several years ago. And then there was story after story of how this new ministry that had come out of that, of people that never would have stepped inside a church, this new ministry that blossomed from that breaking of the bread, of the body, the building, and spreading it out to all others in need. And again, the impact that made. So again, that's not for everybody, but I just thought that was a really interesting view of something that, again, I would have a really hard time finding anything positive in that, and to be able to see the new life coming out of that. So is some of that attitude, I suppose, is some of that an attitude of freeing ourselves up to see where God is working in our lives and in our call? Again, I'm assuming nothing that drastic in this church. Although, wouldn't that be kind of cool if there would be something drastic in this church? I don't want to get rid of the building. But, that wouldn't be a bad thing, right? That the Spirit moves in us so much that we just are doing some amazing things. But part of that is being open to that, right? And not being afraid of that, I don't know what God's going to call me to do, so I'm not going to share my gifts. I don't think I'm going to serve on this committee because I'll probably be asked to do something, right? Or, I don't know, I don't want to pray for God to open my eyes because then I'm going to really see, maybe, all the hurt in the world and that I've been ignoring, right? So change and any of those different kinds of things can be so, so difficult. Have you heard this saying? I don't know if you have or not, but I ran across this. It says, some people get enough religion to make them happy, while others only get enough to make them miserable. Some people get enough religion to make them happy, while others only get enough to make them miserable. Do we stop just at that one point, or do we continue seeking? Do we continue looking for those aha moments, right? Where the Spirit moves, where God speaks to us. That prophetic voice that we can say, oh, yes, whatever this is that I'm going through, okay, this is tricky, this is tough, but maybe there's going to be blessings unimaginable on the other side. And again, I think we have to get rid of the maybe and just trust that there will be blessings unimaginable on the other side of whatever issues we're having with our jobs, with our families, within our family units, in our world, in our community. with our health. So many different things that we are all dealing with, every single one of us. But I think we need to, again, be careful. Preachers kind of, I don't know, sometimes put words in Jesus' mouth, I think, or we try at least, and fill the air with admonitions of, you ought or should, and especially when we think of these kinds of beatitudes, right, of we should be more merciful. You ought to be more meek, right? And sometimes we take these scriptures like the gospel reading today and kind of feel that way, right, that we're being chastised. Blessed is this, so you better peacemaker, so be a peacemaker. And I think Jesus is pronouncing a blessing. And I think if we take it personally of like, oh, I need to self-reflect, am I really doing this? No, I should do that. But I'm not sure that Jesus is necessarily, spanking our hands, right? I think he says in a much broader scope, you who have responded to my call with your faith, you are blessed. Because you are mine, you have the ability to choose a certain kind of life, right? That Jesus is not there, hitting us with the Bible. But instead it's our response to the amazing grace that God has given us through his Son, Jesus Christ. And that we choose that. Oh, yeah, I want to be more of a peacemaker. I want to be more meek. I want to be all those different things because of who I am, a child of God. And when we make this choice of ours, not that we feel guilty, so we should, but we make that choice. I love you, Jesus. I want to serve you. I want to live a life worthy of you. That's when wonderful things happen. It's our inheritance, right? We're going to be talking about that these next couple months, in fact, the whole year. Not every Sunday, but throughout the year of talking about that, of what inheritance we have. And the people that worshiped in this church, were they perfect? No, because we aren't either. But what are some of the lessons that we can learn from them? Again, whether they were your great-great-great-grandparents or whether they're just cool-looking people in a picture with cool hairstyles, right? Go downstairs, look at those pictures. Those were real people with real problems, right? And I'm not talking about the hairstyles. Okay, they're cool. I mean, I love looking at those pictures just to see all the, just what people wore back then, right? But look at all the different people that were there. And again, if you have any pictures, bring those in. Make sure you fill out one of those little cards. Name the people. We're on Facebook. I don't know if Laura started or not, but she's going to start putting some of those old pictures on Facebook as well. To just kind of feel again that they were just people, just like us. But yet they had a dream of starting the First Baptist Church in Haskins, or 5 Points. And that they wanted to be a part of that movement. And again, they created that movement. And how is it that we, again, can kind of learn from that? Some of it, again, is the learning to love people, right? Truly. My sermon title, To Know God, Love People. And I just want to conclude with 2 quotes. The first one is from Dietrich Bonhoeffer in The Cost of Discipleship. Again, if you are looking for something, it's pretty heavy reading, but life-changing. Check that out, especially for Lent. It's incredible if you haven't read it yet. But he says, is there any place on earth for such a community of believers? Clearly there is one place and only one, and that is where the poorest, meekest, and most sorely tried of all men is to be found, on the cross at Golgotha. The fellowship of the Beatitudes is the fellowship of the crucified. So those of us who have been through rough things and still come out on the other side, blessed, finding those blessings, blessing other people, even though we have been beaten up, we keep going. And again, we know there are people that have had much worse than each of us probably, right? But it doesn't matter. We still feel that pain of whatever it is we are going through or have gone through. That's walking with the cross, right? But again, it's feeling that resurrection power, that the cross was not the end. Fred Craddock says, we are no longer victims, we are kingdom people. Because as God's child, you have the choice to accept God's blessings, right? Or not. To bless the others, to take the initiative, To choose beforehand how you're going to respond to different situations. And I'm not saying that that's easy, because I know it's not. I want to conclude with a story. It's by a pastor named Gary Carver, and I don't know him, but I found this little antidote, and again, I would assume that it's a real story, but if it's not, it still is a great message. The story of a wealthy woman who said to a disabled young man at her door, "Sure, I'll buy your magazine to help you through college. Possibly by education, you'll overcome your condition, although I'm sure it colors everything you do." And this young man said, "Yes, ma'am, it does. But thank God, I can choose the color. I can choose the color." So every example that we have does, every circumstance in our life does color our view, right? Our view of how it is that we see our lives, how we see our people in our family, how we see our jobs, how we see our world, how we see strangers, how we see people of a different skin color who we just maybe haven't had great experiences with. So I knew one person with this ethnicity before, and they were like this. So, I better stay away, right? Our experiences color what we do and how we live our lives. But again, we can choose the color of that, right? We can choose if that's going to be something that's going to make us be bitter, make us be unforgiving, make us have prejudices, or if instead we're going to choose the color of Jesus' eyes, right? Looking through Jesus' eyes of love and mercy and kindness and forgiveness. That's what we're called to do. Let us pray. Gracious God, again, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for the scriptures. We thank you that they are challenging, because we don't want to be blessed when bad things happen to us. We want to be blessed with the good stuff. But yet, God, we know that we are blessed with the good stuff. Even when bad things happen in our lives, things that we don't want to happen, we know that we are truly blessed, God, to have you as our parent, to have Jesus as our Savior, to have that guarantee of life through you, continued life, through nothing that we can do, just through the grace of your mercy and your love for us. And God, it's nothing, again, that we have to jump through the hoops to do, to earn our way to heaven, to earn our way into your blessings. They're given freely, God. And then we respond by wanting to live the better life, by wanting to help other people, by wanting to serve you and praise you and take time, God, for you and to worship you, the creator of each and every one of us and each and every person and the universe and all creation. Help us, God, again, to not be too busy, to not be too wrapped up, to not be too scared. Help us to embrace the challenges that we have in our lives, knowing again that you are with us.